Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us again today. We are super excited to be back with you, sharing some exciting real estate knowledge and free information as we do every other week here. And a lot of people are taking advantage of it, and I think it's a good thing. And here with me, as usual, is Sandra McKay.
Hey, Rob.
How are you today?
Amazing. Kicking off 2021. Real estate, we're trying to keep the economy afloat here, I think, with real estate. So it's fun.
Sort of single-handedly.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure on the real estate world, but it's fun. A lot of stuff to do.
Absolutely. For those of you listening right now, you should all go over to breakthrough.reipodcast.ca. There you can download and listen to every single episode that we've done. 140 something now, I believe, are up there and ready for you guys to listen to anytime you want to. A bunch of really good, inspiring interviews with all kinds of people from the real estate investing world, right across Canada, and even some that are sort of, teaching you how to invest as a Canadian in the States. So, a lot of information there, and other places. I think we did one on Belize, but tons of information. If you want to go back and listen to all that, you definitely should. And you should get on our list and receive our free gift.
Yeah, the ultimate strategy for building wealth through real estate. Go over to our website, breakthrough.reipodcast.ca, to pick that up. When you do that, you also get on our email list, of course, and you get all of our updates on the shows, updates on what we're doing, webinars, property tours, maybe in-person stuff one day, and things. All great stuff real estate related that you can use in your businesses to build wealth.
Absolutely. And everybody knows this, but it helps us out a lot if you hop onto iTunes and leave us a rating or review for the show. Allows more people to engage with us and allows more people to find the podcast on iTunes. So if you haven't done that already, please go over and give that a quick thumbs up, 5 stars for us. And we would greatly appreciate that. Every once in a while, we read the reviews. There's, I'm not on the web page right now, but next time we'll get to some more reviews that people have left. And do you have anything else, Sandy?
Nothing too much, really. No, I think, typical stuff there. We always love everyone's support, and kicking off into our, we're at 7 years, just past 7 years at this recording. So tons of support over the years. We really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to more to come and more great guests like we have today.
Absolutely. We have a great guest today. Thanks for that. Thanks for that segue, Sandy. Yeah. Today, we are very happy to be speaking with Darcy Marler from Hutton Radway Consulting about how there is more to investing than just flips, rentals, and BRRR strategy, which is, a lot of the focus and a lot of what we actually talk about here too. So, and why that choosing your why before you pick your how is so important. So thanks, Darcy, for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's great.
So do you want to just tell us a little bit about you? I know we were talking before we started recording just about some interesting time you spent in Brazil. So, maybe not the investing stuff right off the bat, but tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I just turned 54 last week. Don't tell anybody. But yeah, I was a computer guy for years. In the last 5 years of the 90s, I was based out of South America. Met my wife down there. She's Venezuelan. So I was, my kids were actually born there too. So I spent a lot of time in Venezuela, Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico. Got burnt out, didn't want to see a computer again. So I came back to Canada and brought the family. So I'm a husband, father of 3 now university-age kids. I'm active and I'm writing and an author now. Got 3 books on real estate. And even the last couple of years, just to get away from real estate, I've also become a farm diversification expert, a specialist in helping farmers of all sites get into new ways of growth and revenue. So everything from fish farming to hops to hydroponics. It's pretty cool and exciting.
That's one way to make money for sure nowadays.
Yeah.
So, and now what everybody's here for, I guess, tell us a little bit about your investing journey, how that got started out.
Well, I first wrote my first buy real estate with no money down back in the 1980s. And finally, when I came back from South America in 2001. I had a chance to do that. So I've been a full-time real estate investor now for 20 years. In that time, I've done fix and flips, new construction, land development, condo conversion. I've done BRRR, changed the use of existing properties. I've done commercial. I've been a landlord all that time. So as you can see, I tend to lose focus quickly and get bored quickly. And just about the time I figure something out, I'm on to the next thing. But it's given me a kind of a wealth of knowledge. In that time, I've owned 92 properties with 240 doors. So done some stuff at all levels.
And great. And you had this story about your first investment there. That was pretty funny, I thought.
Yeah, so I'm fresh off the boat, as they say. And I contacted this realtor who was kind of my coach and mentor back in the early days. I was going to do flips as the first strategy. So he takes me to this up-down duplex. I'm based in Calgary, and it's before Hoarders was a show, so I didn't even know it was called that. But it was just disgusting. So brother and sister owned it. The brother lived upstairs, the sister lived downstairs, and it was just disgusting. So we went up and saw the upstairs. Couldn't see anything. We went downstairs, and there's this little pathway getting through the living room that you can kind of find your way to the kitchen in the back. Stuff's piled high. As we're going through, something moves in my peripheral vision off to the right. I must have jumped a foot, scared the hell out of me. Turns out the sister was lying on the couch. I didn't even see her. She blended right in. That's my first introduction to real estate investing and flips. But I ended up buying the property and did okay on it.
Oh, so you bought that house?
I did. I've always had the ability to kind of see past the mess and the issues and just see what the bones are and go from there. So
yeah, that's great. I think that a lot of people would have probably run from that. I mean, describing your first investment property as absolutely disgusting would probably scare some people, but it is as they say, as even our good friend Quentin D'Souza says, like cat pee and that thing. The cat pee smells like money.
Yeah, I would. Over the years, I kind of specialized in that really nasty stuff too, like asbestos and cat pee and mold. I had one where the 3-story apartment building that had been boarded up for 2 years, holes in the roof, so there was actually mushrooms and grass growing on the carpet on the 3rd floor. That was a fun one. Yeah, so I've had my share of those.
Yeah, I've seen places for sale where like there was a big long note written for by the tenants of whoever lived there to their landlord on the wall. Suffice to say, I probably shouldn't repeat what it said here, but I've seen all kinds of things like that too. Let's talk about and also you were saying, sorry, did we talk about what you were doing down south?
I was a computer guy actually. Yeah, so came out of school in the 80s and loved computers. So my life has been basically 17 years chunks. I was 17 years on the farm, 17 years as a computer guy, then 17 years basically as a full-time real estate investor. The last 2 or 3 I've been investing and doing the farm diversification stuff. So when I was down in South America, I was specializing in accounting software. So basically everything, it's really true what they say, everything you've done up till now kind of creates the life you have now. So giving me a broad range of experiences for which to put into my books and talk about on podcasts and stuff.
So now a lot of people would call like those things that we talked about in those stories, the hoarder house and the mushrooms growing in the carpet. A lot of people would consider those to be like roadblocks that they've encountered, and that might be the story that they tell. But for you, what types of roadblocks have you encountered, and how have you overcome them?
Mostly, to be honest, more mental health wise, to be honest. The last 5 years investing in Alberta hasn't been fun at all, as you can imagine, with lower rents and higher vacancies and whatnot. So I found myself in kind of a deep depression back a couple years ago, 2017, 2018. Also, mostly because of the money, but also because I just wasn't happy, right? I was doing things that didn't jive with kind of who my personality was. So I love the hunt of real estate investing. I love being creative. I like finding new things. I like putting the deals together. but I don't necessarily like being the landlord or the site super or my own general contractor guy. But I was spending probably 15% of my career being the stuff I like, and then 85% doing what I didn't like. So after 17, 18 years of that, I was just not in a great place. So I kind of had to step back a bit and figure out why I was doing it. And people talk about why a lot now, but it wasn't anything I'd ever heard about before this. When I first started 20 years ago, my why was I just wanted to get rich. And I think that's the same for a lot of people, which is a horrible why, to be honest with you. So I had to figure out who I was and what I liked and what I didn't like. And now the last few years, I've been kind of recrafting that, what I do every day, so that it does make me happy, right? And I can honestly say I'm much more happy. So part of that is focusing, learning to focus, which was, as we said, a problem for me. And so now I'm doing the farm consulting and the farm diversification stuff. I'm writing again and doing mentorship like that. And then I'm also back in real estate investing, but focusing on the things that I like about it, and then kind of handing off the parts that I don't like. So now if I do a new construction project, I'll get a general contractor as opposed to being that guy. And it's I can honestly say I can't remember the last time I've been this happy. It's been really great.
So, and I think that's really relevant for a lot of people right now too, because I mean, the majority of us are stuck in the house and don't really know what to do with ourselves. What would you say is the biggest thing that helped you with that? Was it just focusing more, or what was the big thing that sort of got you back on track?
I find, I don't want to speak for everybody. Everybody's depression is different, but for me, I was just kind of blaming everybody, right? Like it was a big pity party for Darcy. It was really easy to blame, different levels of government and different policies that have come along that kind of torpedoed Alberta, and it's everybody else's fault, and blah blah blah. And so the first step is kind of just saying, you still bought the properties, it's still on you, buddy. And then the next step is to kind of be thankful for who you are and what you do have, and start to appreciate it, and then start to realize that it's not all about the money. A lot of what I was and who I thought I was based on the success of the real estate and the awards and the 92 doors. Like, you can get into that game pretty quickly where it's all about competition with yourself and others. So I kind of stepped back and stopped that and just be kind of thankful for what I do have. And then from there it was crafting what is your why, a deep dive into my personality, what I liked and what I don't like, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, cutting out the stuff that I didn't want or wasn't good at, and then kind of and then that's where the focus came in, to kind of focus on the part of my life that I did want to spend more time on.
So
that's very good. I was just going to say, thanks for sharing that though, because I think that's important information to put out there and let people, there's somebody out there that needs to hear that right now, I think.
Well, somebody's maybe going through the same thing right now. And I know, like, a lot of people do get in for the money. That's usually an easy, thing to chase at the beginning. And it's probably why they have no clarity on what strategy they're going to use, how they're going to find this money. A lot of people, flips are really attractive at the beginning because it seems like quick cash, kind of a just quick way to feel successful, but definitely not always the right strategy for everyone and their goals. How do you look at that? How would you advise people to actually think about that as they're starting out and getting some clarity on where they actually want to take this real estate investing journey beyond?
Yeah. So no, I think as I talk more and more people my age are coming up and saying, yeah, I've been investing for a long time and I'm not happy. I'm not happy with the returns. I'm just not enjoying it. Right? And I think that's a problem with the industry in general, is that, I've been, like I said, I read my first book when I was 15. That's a long time ago. The main focus, I feel, of the real estate education industry is flips and rentals, and now the merge, the VRR, the BREI, however you want to call it. And so you're a new person getting in. Well, I guess that's all there is, right? And so, A, no, there is other things, but B, I would also recommend that newcomers or people that aren't happy take a step back and kind of educate yourself on everything's available, and then pick your strategy from there. So instead of just going right in and picking the how or the strategy, pick your why first, and then kind of work with your strengths and weaknesses and personality and what I think I'm going to like and get into it from there. I think you'll be a lot happier over the long term with.
Yeah,
then you'll be enjoying what you're doing.
I don't think a lot of people would say, 92 doors is their why. It's more, it's like, what are you going to get from that? Not necessarily 92 doors, but whatever the real estate goal is. Like, what is your lifestyle going to gain from that? What is your life going to gain from that, right? So absolutely, like looking for that how, figuring that out first is super important, because a lot of people do get caught up in just, what can I do? Like, how can I purchase as many properties as possible in as quick a time as possible?
Right.
And we talked to Russell Westcott about that too. And
Yeah.
Just his thing was like buying indiscriminately as much as he possibly could. And then turning around and going, I'm not super pumped about the portfolio that I put together here.
Yeah.
It sounds impressive, but it's a management nightmare, and whatever else might come along with it, all of the repairs that have to be done. And, so, and that, not only are you left with that, but that creates stress in your life that, you could have managed if you thought about it a little more from the beginning and planned it out of exactly what are you trying to get? Like, what's the ultimate goal here?
Right. And I think when you're talking, I've met a ton of investors over the years. Most of, if you're goal oriented, most of the goals aren't lifestyle. Most of the goals are specific. In 10 years, I want a specific number of doors, or I want a specific cash flow, or I want a specific thing that's typically tied to the property or the money, which again is kind of the wrong way to go. Myself, I'm a great example. When I first came back from South America and I got into flips, that was the strategy. As you said, Sandy, everybody gets into flips. My goal was to have a conveyor belt where every month I was going to find 2 new properties. The next month and make an offer. The next month I'd physically take possession and start work on them. Finish that work in a month, the 3rd month, and then put them up for sale. Have an offer the 4th month and get my money the 5th. There's a tremendous amount of pressure trying to find 2 new properties, because you've got basically 10 properties in the conveyor belt at all times. But feeding that hopper, feeding the beast is terrible. And that's a lot of the reason for the pressure on flippers, is they're always trying to find that next house, right? Like, so there's a lot of pressure there. And I found myself saying yes to properties that I shouldn't have bought, right? Like, if I was just about the numbers and analyzing that property, no, this is not one that I can take, but I got to feed that beast. So I said yes. So, I made money on some and didn't make money on others, and lost 10 grand on the next one. Like, so it was really up and down, trying to feed that goal machine. And I always kind of joke, you only have to kick me in the head 3 or 4 times before I figure stuff out. It took me 15, 16, 17 years to finally figure out how to do it properly.
How do you think people can figure that out up front? Is there any tips or strategies around that? Because I know it is, it's a little easier probably once you've experienced it. And the problem with that is that you waste a lot of time experiencing it and not finding the solution quick enough. But how do you figure that out if you have like minimal or no experience?
I'm legitimately not trying to push it in here, but my first book was on that very thing. It was comparing the 8 real estate strategies that I mentioned, the fix and flips and new construction. I wrote a 200-page books with basically 20 pages on each of those, where I kind of summarize the good and the bad, because that's another thing I find with a lot of real estate education, both on TV and in the books, is that everything works every time, right? Like, the property brothers never lose money, right? And so you're sitting there thinking everything's good, everything's Pollyanna. If you just do this and this, you'll be a millionaire in a year. That's not the case, right? So the book was meant to be honest. Here's the pros and cons. Like, here's the type of personality you need to be able to do well at this. Here's where fix and flip can kick your butt. Here's where you can make money at it. And so if you're new, just starting out, it's free on my website, that book. You can download that one for free, just to kind of bring yourself up to speed on all the different strategies. Get an objective book, because I've done multiple versions of everything. Like, I've built almost 50 homes, and, done 20 flips. So, I've done multiple things in every one. So I can say I've honestly made money in every application, and I've lost money in every of these strategies too, right? So it's very objective. and then I kind of compare. And I have one chapter where I actually took a look, because I did a bunch of flips very early in my career, and then I got into some of the other stuff. So I just did a what if, and I said, what if those 15 or 20 flips that I'd done back in the day, what if I'd have kept those? So I did a comparison of basically a BRR versus flips, and just personally from myself, how different would my economic status be 10 years later? And I found out it was, you're better off with kind of a BRR strategy, flip strategy, But so that's a kind of a book that I think can benefit new people. But also, if you've been in it for a while and maybe not enjoying it, maybe kind of take a reset and learn what else is out there.
Where can they find that? What's the website?
My website is HR Real Estate Mentors. So HR stands for Hutton Radley, realestatementors.com.
Perfect. What tools do you use? Do you have any tools to become more efficient in that? Once you're using these strategies to accomplish someone's why, is it, you've obviously, it seems like you've developed some systems to leverage some pieces out that you didn't like doing.
Part of the reset, trouble with the cash flows of the rental properties and all that in the last few years was I got away from the basics. So, BRR, buy, renovate. So I've got properties. I think I've still got about 100 doors in the rental world, based over six cities and towns in Alberta. So during the renovates place, I was up there constantly overseeing everything. So I was right into it. After that, I kind of backed off and let my local managers manage the buildings. And I found that when you do that, then they're setting the quality of the renovations that are coming after that, and they're setting the quality of the tenants, and they're setting the limits for what the rental is and everything, right? And then I also found that forms were getting filled out wrong or not getting filled out at the right time. So basically, as far as tools, I actually wrote a manual, just a kind of 20-page manual for my managers of this is how I want things done. And then I started going back at least monthly to every one of my towns to visit firsthand to make sure quality is where I want it to be and tenant selection is where I want it to be. And kind of just got back to basics. And I think that was kind of one of the main tools that I use is this book and getting back to basics.
Is that also, so, I mean, let's talk about your books. Is that one of the other books that you have available?
No, but I was just actually the other day, I was thinking I should probably just that as a free download on that, because it's like I said, it's only like 20 pages. What's that?
I said it sounds like something I'd want to read.
It would be specific to Alberta with the form, but you could certainly,
but I mean,
whatever the forms you want.
The ideas of the procedures and that kind of thing is probably pretty streamlined across Canada.
The other thing I noticed too is over the years I've done my own management. I've done legitimate property management companies, and then I've also found I've got a guy kind of world, and I've kind of compare those a little bit in that manual too. There is a big difference in how things get done. I typically just kind of have employees now that work directly for me, kind of. So I've got a guy here and a lady there, kind of thing. I backed away from management companies per se. Maybe that's not for everybody either, but that's kind of the style that I use.
Now, are you able to do that because the majority of your places are in because it sounds like obviously you can't do that if they're jumping from town to town to town. That doesn't.
I've got a manager in each town.
Right. Okay.
What I found, just my personal thing is, and nothing against management companies because I've done it, so it's an awful job. But typically, an apartment becomes vacant, and then they come in and say, Darcy, we have to do this and this, and here's going to be the bill for that. And as someone who's done so much flipping and renovating, I know what stuff costs, so I could literally do that for half the price. Well, let me bring my guys in, my crew in to do that. Well, the management company doesn't kind of want you to do that. So I was always kind of butting heads with management companies over, I think you can do it cheaper. I think you're maybe got your hand in my pocket a little too much. So that's kind of why I've gone to this other strategy of just having my own kind of people and then I have crews in each town that comes in and we'll do the renovations kind of the way I like it and whatever. So different strategy. I don't know if that's for everybody, but it's definitely not hands off. So that led to, you know, like I said, I don't like being the landlord. Well, that's the trade-off of just kind of letting it go to a property management company who takes care of everything. I don't know that you can have the best of both worlds, where you can have somebody take care of everything and then keep the costs down and still have things done the way. So you've kind of got to find that whatever works for you is kind of how I've found it over the years.
And so how many towns are you investing in?
6. I'm in, so I've Edmonton, Calgary, Red Deer, Medicine Hat, a town called Lacombe, and then a little town called Caroline. Caroline's got about 500 people in it. And I own 4 fourplexes. I own 16 properties in Caroline, Alberta, Canada. I think I'm I must have like 40% of the rental market in town. And so I'm the boss hog of Caroline, I say.
Very good. What made you decide to go to a small town like that?
Well, actually, when I was basically the prices of some of the stuff in Calgary. So when I first got back, I had a bit of a war chest that I could go and do stuff with. And as I got into flips and then I got more into the rentals, I found that a lot of stuff is hard to kind of buy in Calgary, right? So I was looking for opportunities outside in some of the smaller markets. So places like Medicine Hat and this opportunity came up in Caroline, and it's the town where Kurt Browning, the figure skater, was where he's from originally. So just kind of trying to buy things cheaper, trying to make your dollar go farther, is kind of the reason behind my second book, which was Cash Management and how to make your dollars go further. And if you don't have money, how to kind of find money to get into real estate. And once you've got some doors, how to increase cash flow after that. So it was just kind of a need, just lack of money. At first, I wasn't really comfortable with getting JV partners and kind of using other people's money. So I kind of had to make my own money go as far as I can.
Have you used JV partners now over the years? And and do you prefer one way or the other, or kind of case by case?
It's unfortunately my timing sucked. I raised about $8.5 million in 2014 and bought 66 doors or something all over Alberta at exactly the wrong time to buy real estate in Alberta. So, I certainly I had JV partners before that too, and so some of the stories are ended well and some not so well.
But when you say the wrong time, I'll have to say, like, I mean, we've been over and over this. The idea in 10 years, you're certainly going to be appreciative that you were able to do that at that time,
right?
So you're saying just like very shortly after that, the prices went down on everything, and you could have bought them at a discount. But again, like when people, it's always a theme that we run into. It's like, when was the best? The best time to buy was 20 years ago, and the next best time is today, right? So I think that's important. When you say, I feel like you're just being a little bit too hard on yourself, and when you say something like at exactly the wrong time, but I mean, now you own those properties, right? Now. Yeah,
and so, it's tough to. I think there's some things that have happened in Alberta politically that maybe skewed the world. Like, we've been in a recession for basically 5 years now. So that's kind of an outlier. That's not normal. So typically, 54 years old, this is my 4th recession. I remember the 80s. I bought my first house in 1987 at 12.5% interest. So that tells you how far back I go. Actually, and back then, just to give you some perspective, I used 10% as the dividing line between going fixed on a mortgage or going variable, right?
Okay.
When your first deal is 12.5% and you're sitting there, if that money ever gets below 10, you lock that in because that's good money there. Now I'll be in Starbucks and I'll see this young couple and they're arguing whether to go fixed or variable, like 2.3, and you just want to slap them upside the head and go lock it in for 7 years. It's free money, basically. But yeah, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's much lower it can go at this
No,
point.
I don't think so either. Yeah. Lock it in.
Alberta,
But that's part of the, like I said, this is my 4th recession, and typically they kind of come and go quicker. So this one is kind of an outlier as far as Alberta is concerned. And then you kind of watch with envy some of the stuff that's happening.
Alberta is one of the more volatile markets in Canada generally, right? Maybe the most volatile. Is it any like is there a reason you picked Alberta? Is it just because it's nearby and somewhere you kind of knew and could go and drive to quickly?
No, I grew up actually was born in Edmonton, and then when I went down to South America and decided to come back, I kind of always liked the entrepreneurial spirit of Calgary versus kind of the mom and pop or kind of government feel that's Edmonton. So I just came back to Calgary and started investing in Alberta. You're learning and you don't know anything about any of this stuff, so you don't really want to go too far from home. Now, for example, I'm working on some stuff for new construction down in, the United States. So now I don't have any problems kind of getting past that geographical barrier. But, I certainly understand when you're first into it. It's a lot safer to rent something a couple of blocks down from where you live. So.
Let's talk about new investors getting into the business. What kind of advice can we share with them that would be helpful? Obviously, their big why and coming up with or some version of their why. I mean, I think I feel though your why can change over time and go totally different directions over time, just depending on what happens. But what would you say are some of the most important pieces to recommend for new investors?
Right, and just before I get to that, just your last point about changing over time. Yeah. Like at 54, I don't want to do long-term rentals anymore. Like I don't have any desire to be in an 8 or 10-year JV with somebody, right? So that's specifically age-related as well. Mm-hmm. But in terms of advice, it's almost strategy by strategy. So if you're looking at long-term rentals, I would say the number one advice is spend your time and money up front checking that tenant out before you let them into your unit, right? Make sure you do the credit check and phone the employer and phone the current landlord. That was one of the things I got away from back in 2015, 2016, is I kind of stopped doing that too. If you're in the middle of a recession, I just need somebody there, right? So there's that that kind of pressure. And then as you get into some of the other strategies too, each strategy has their own kind of thing. New construction, my advice would be is yes, you can do it. I think a lot of the problem with land development and new construction is different strategies for people. Is that they think it takes too much money, or it has to be bigger projects, or it's only there for the big boys. So I would say no. It's you can certainly do large or smaller scale projects if that's what you want, and that's just what you're if you're just getting in. New construction of a single family home is certainly something that's doable for a lot of people.
Cool. Yeah. And there's so many different stories. I think people need to kind of just talk about, with someone who kind of knows and has some experience. They probably could really benefit from just having some conversations before jumping quickly right into things. Right. And just getting some knowledge on where they could go, where they could start out, and what's the most, the best path. I think it's important to get in and get active. I feel, but at the same time, understand a little bit about what you do and where you want to go, where you want to see your life go, and how every strategy is going to affect your life differently. So
the other part of that too is what's your partner think of it, right? Not only maybe an investment partner, but also your life partner, whoever that might be. Are they involved or not? What are their likes and dislikes? What's their why? So give that some thought too.
Yeah, I think comfort level, right? Especially like is someone really risk averse versus not, and often couples are maybe complementary to each other in many ways, which is why they fit. Maybe they counterbalance each other in a lot of ways, not just financially, but sometimes one person's appetite for risk is completely opposite of their spouse, which is potentially going to lead to some challenges, right? If you're at least don't have the conversation, at least you need to at least discuss that a bit up front, right?
And they need to be involved, even if they're not day-to-day involved. Make sure that they know what's going on and they've got their say. Yeah, I don't think this is a great investment, or yeah, let's go for this one. You know, they should probably be involved in that as well. That'll save some headaches down the road.
Let's talk about your new book. What's your book? A few books, maybe mention all of them. Maybe are they all available at the same place, same website?
Yeah, they're all on my website. Yeah, hrrealestatementors.com. Yeah, the third one and is land development as a profitable investment. And the subtitle is from dream to design to reality. So that's kind of the theme I weave throughout the book. Is you start with, you're driving past that empty lot on every day on the way to work. You know, I think a little strip mall would be good there, and then you kind of start to get into the flesh that out a little bit more. So basically, it's kind of a series of steps. The first step is you want to be able to quickly, because you don't own the land yet, quickly find out what you can do on that land, what the zoning is. Is it possible? You're talking to a realtor to get some high-level idea of what it would be once you did develop it, what it would sell for. And just to kind of clarify, I define land development in the book is just getting it to the point where a builder would build on it. So taking a piece of land, whether it's vacant or whether there's already a building on it, and then just getting it ready for a builder. I'm in the middle of writing book 4, which is new construction, which will pick it up from there, is buying a service lot and going forward. But the land development is you get to the point really quickly in a week or two, really not having spent any money. Is this something feasible? Does it look like it could be profitable? Then you go to the next step where he actually hires, a civil engineer and start to work on some of the blueprints and fleshing out the money, actually get some true costs to it. And then you get to a point where, are you really going to commit and go hard? And now you're spending a lot more money to get all the blueprints and everything else that the city's going to need for the application. So it takes it from those serious steps. I use 3 case studies from my own life. Like I said, I've done all kinds of stuff. So I take a small one for somebody who might be at that level. I've done like a medium one where I took 7.25 acres and did 36 units. And then I was actually also the president of a company that built the horse track and casino out here in Calgary. So, 720 acres and, you're putting in lights and all kinds of things there. So I give you the benefit of all those 3 case studies as we go through the book, just depending on where you are in your own development. So I think it's a pretty good book. And in 30 years of doing this, you don't see too many books specifically on land development or new construction or some of these other things. So I think there's a real need for it.
Yeah, it's kind of untapped almost in a way, right? It's odd. Maybe do people feel it's unreachable or unattainable to get into that space? Maybe a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. It's only for the big boys. Well, not really.
And when do you expect the 4th book to be out?
That should be out, I would suspect, by the end of March. So it's really close as well.
Yeah, very good. So maybe even by the time people are listening to this, they might be able to get it. Where would they go to get these books?
All the website, hrrealestatementors.com. You can look up, there's a tab at the top that says books, and you can order it right online.
Perfect. And anyone listening can grab that link in the show notes. Let's talk about what's next for you. What are your big dreams? What are your goals? What do you got coming up?
Well, my goal was, I turned 50 in 2017, and the goal was at that point, I'm sitting there in 2013, 2014 buying these buildings, and I'm saying, I'm going to retire at 50, I'm going to sell all my buildings, and then kind of go live somewhere else. That got waylaid because of the economy, but now even if I were to do that, I probably wouldn't do it because I'm enjoying what I'm doing now. Like I said, figure out your why. So I'm basically focusing on the 3 areas. I'm doing new construction down in the States, as I said, and then I'm doing the books and the match. I really like writing and kind of sharing my knowledge. I've got, as I said, 92 properties, and every one of those has a story. So I like to kind of share that. And then I'm doing this work with the farm diversification stuff that I just find fascinating as well. It's finding ways to, in nature, there's no waste, right? So the waste of something will be the input from something else. So now you're growing these fish, and that waste is feeding this. Now we're getting the nutrient-rich water for grow hydroponics, and that's growing this, and that's creating some waste, but then you're taking the methane. Like it's fascinating. I love this stuff. So it gets back to the why. I like being creative, and I like being intellectually stimulated every day. I like, I used to say I like to be mentally challenged, but that didn't sound as good. So we say intellectually stimulated now. And yeah, I want to get up with a reason and be enthusiastic about the day, where before, like I was dreading every day because, typically it was just, now I have to go on site and do on-site manager stuff, right? So now I'm very much more picky about what I do, and I make sure it kind of feeds the creativity meter and the intellect meter every day. So that's the goal going forward.
Cool.
Perfect. What about a book on the whole farming thing?
That's probably maybe book 5. Yes, so we'll see. But it's basically the last 2 years have just been learning, right? And so I find that fascinating, and it's almost never ending, right? Because you can always learn more about all this stuff, right? And so yeah, so I've got clients that are larger and smaller, and the large one, real quick, is they were a large grain farmer and the largest thoroughbred horse breeder in the province of Alberta. I met them through the racetrack, and the patriarch passed away, so now the next generation is trying to figure out how to make money off these horses that are losing big money. So we come in and we scaled down the number of horses. That freed up a barn. What are you going to do with the barn? So now we've got fish farming. We've actually got fish growing that they'll be ready for market next week. And then the other third of the barn is probably going to be something like mushrooms, and the part in the middle is going to be hydroponics. So it's really been fascinating to kind of watch their growth too, as a family, come up with these new ideas too. So it's really
That sounds very cool. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a couple other stories you shared with us prior about some of your properties. As you said, 92 properties, they all have a story.
Yeah.
One of them that's intriguing is the adult playroom scenario, which is, I don't know, that's in skimming through some of the notes and stuff, I'm like, oh, that's got to be pretty interesting, that one. Why don't you share maybe one or two other, that one sounds like an interesting one, or any others that come to mind?
Okay, I'll start with that one. So yeah, so I was just driving, where do you find your properties? I was just driving in Edmonton, and there's this 3-story, 12-unit apartment building that was boarded up. So most people drive by it. I marked the address down and started digging. Ended up buying it. It had a fire. This was I bought it in 2014 as well. It had a fire in 2009 and sat empty for 5 years. So you go in, and of course it's got the fire damage, but it's also got all the water damage and the mold in the basement. But as we're going through room by room, it was kind of weird because the fire had happened right at Christmas time, and then everybody had to leave. All the renters had to leave, and so they took they moved their stuff. So there was just a lot of stuff. So there was actually, 2009 Christmas trees still there in 2014. But we go into this one suite in the basement, and it was a 2-bedroom. We would go in, and one of the bedroom doors is locked from the outside, like with an actual padlock, right? Well, that's really weird to have the lock on the outside. So I walk in, and there's like this kind of a cross, not this way, but kind of like that, made of 2x4s. And there was leather handles for your hands and your feet. So your first thought might be that, oh, this is, an adult playroom. But then you sit there and think, well, if it's an adult playroom, then why was there a lock on the outside of the door? So I still to this day don't know what happened there, but that's what happens when you kind of get into flips, and that stuff happens. Man. So.
That's pretty, freaky in the basement, nonetheless, too, right? So it's,
and then I got another one. I'll just tell you. So early in my flipping days, I bought a house to flip. It was a nice corner lot on a nice street. Across the street was a park. So there was about 10 houses in this half crescent that were all the same age. They were all that 1960s kind of square bungalow that, are all over all the different cities in Canada. All of the people kind of lived at the same time they moved in. So basically everybody on the street was in their 70s. And everybody knew everybody. So the one lady died. The owner, the original owner was 92 years old, and she was a Ukrainian Baba. And the stereotype is true. Her entire backyard was a potato patch. not a blade of grass. So I bought it off the estate, and then I'm just about ready to renovate that and flip it when the neighbor passes away. And so his son comes to me and asks if I want to buy his too. So this was the actual first introduction of, well, maybe I can actually tear down these two properties and actually build something new, right? So that's what I was going to do. At the same time, just like they tell you in all the weekend real estate conferences, go put a note on every door down the street and see if anybody else. So, I had visions of owning this entire street. So I put notes in every door and didn't think about it at all, right? Well, the next day I get this phone call, and it's this lady about my age. She just tears into me, rips a strip up one side, down the other. Turns out her mother had passed away the day before. She didn't know I put notes in all the other doors. She thought I was ambulance chasing, and the body wasn't even cold yet. And I was just right there trying to buy her house. Finally managed to calm her down after about 5 minutes. She finally believed me that I wasn't just out to do it. Well, of course, over the next couple of weeks, everybody else on the street has heard it too. So they quickly divided themselves into two camps. There was half that thought I was the biggest heel in the world, and the other half that thought this was the funniest story they ever heard. So we eventually got to the point, if we passed on the street, she didn't give me death threats. I never did end up buying any other house on the street. I finished those two and got out of there.
I didn't know which way that was going. I figured it could go one way or the other. Either the whole street sold you their houses, and
actually, to this day, it kind of scared me off from doing that. Putting the letter in every door. I kind of don't do that anymore.
You know what? I never went down. I think I've done the street if I was doing a reno or whatever. I think I have done the whole street, but normally I'll target like specific ones, just on the state of repair. And I've had the exact same scenario where somebody died like the day or two before, and they thought that I had targeted them. And it does, like, sure, if somebody's doing that, it is pretty kind of sleazy. But no, that wasn't the case either. And if any of your tenants happen to be listening to this, it wasn't your apartment.
It wasn't my apartment, no.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't their.
It wasn't their apartment, no. Actually, to be honest, I don't remember which one it was now either. In that building, there's 4 in the basement. I don't remember which one was which, so I couldn't actually honestly tell you.
Okay, well, yeah, you know what? Like, man, thanks for sharing those. Those are funny.
Yeah.
Good stories. I like them. I guess lastly, is there like any kind of a quote or a piece of advice that you've ever gotten that stuck with you through all the years?
Just more. I'm not much of a religious guy, but there's a quote in the Bible that's "In quietness and confidence shall be your strength," and that's kind of one I always, because I'm kind of an introvert, kind of a quiet guy to begin with, so I kind of have always liked that one. Real estate related. Again, it's take the time and make sure that you're checking your tenants out. I think that's a real killer if you don't do that. But yeah, it's kind of the religious quote I've always thought that spoke more than other stuff.
I think auditing. I think one other quick thing on just like taking the time to see if this is really gonna get you where you want to get this strategy. Auditing that regularly too, right? Like every year, every couple of years, every 6 months, whatever you want to do. I think just checking in on that and making sure you're still aligned with that is important.
Yeah. Am I happy? Am I enjoying this? And if not, what do I need to tweak?
Yeah.
Celebrate the wins, and if something's not the way you want it, then you can always change. I think we tend to kind of ride things too long if we're not just for the sake, because that's the way it works. I think we should be a little more attuned to changing stuff that's not working in our lives if we want to.
Yeah. And I don't want to breeze over what you did say there. I think that's actually very important, super practical advice that is sort of kind of the style of stuff that we like to give out. The sort of the mental stuff is very, very important, but also, there is some practical information that can be super helpful. And when you said don't, just throw somebody into the unit, make sure that they're the right person. Like, there's been so many times I've been stung by just either not doing the right background checks or just feeling pressure, I guess, to get somebody in there. Maybe I feel like I'm down to the wire or something like that, and somebody says, I'll take it. That's always the wrong way to go about it. So now I've learned, go a month empty if you've got to. Make sure you get the right person in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the reason, if you're still empty, then, your price is too high, right? So whether you want to or not, drop your rent, right? So, but make sure you get because there's good people available, good tenants available at any price point. There's bad ones at every price point too. So make sure you find the right level where your price should be, and then find the best possible person at that level.
Agreed. What else, Rob? We had a wrap here?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we could probably go on for a while, but again, we don't like to monopolize everybody's time too much. They come on here for free. They share everything with us and everybody else out there. So let's end off with the best way to get in touch with you. What would that be for the people listening? Yeah,
it's just my email, Darcy, Darcy, at huttonradway.com. And then the website is I've actually, it was huttonradway.com, but now I got a farm one too. So I've had to split them up. So now the real estate side is hrrealestatementors.com. And if you're actually a farmer looking to diversify, you can reach me through there too.
Yeah, that's cool. We haven't talked much about that side of things. Maybe that'll be another show for us down the road. Maybe once you write your book, we can come on and talk all about that side of things.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty cool and interesting, and a different side of an investment world that we've probably only barely touched on like today, but never really went deep on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so and do you want to spell out Hutton Radway just for everybody?
HUTTONRADWAY.
Perfect. Okay, and again, like we said before, all of Darcy's info is going to be in the show notes. So if you would like to get in touch with him, just jump in there. All the links for the books, all the website, and his email, they'll all be there for you. So if you're driving, don't worry. Just go back into the show notes later on, and you'll have all the links right there to get in touch and get your hands on these books that he's been talking about. So thanks for joining us today and sharing all this. We appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, thank you. I really had fun. This was great.
And Sandy, how can people get in touch with you?
289-389-6846 or sandy@mckayrealtynetwork.com.
And people can reach me at rob@mrbreakthrough.ca. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.